The MAGA manosphere is rapidly finding out they didn't get what they bargained for with Donald Trump. Because many of the right-wing podcast bros that prop Donald Trump up to begin with are now turning on him as his popularity sinks for a number of reasons. Partially because Donald Trump's approval rating right now is in the same place where he spends all his time tweeting, namely the toilet. But a lot of it is actually stemming from Donald Trump's atrocious immigration policy and enforcement. Comedian Theo Von specifically, who is one of the prominent faces of the so-called manosphere, had a pretty out-of-character moment where he was overcome with emotion in a recent episode, partially due to this.
Comedian Theo Von is telling the Department of Homeland Security to take down a deportation video that uses his voice. On X, Von wrote, "Yo, DHS, I didn't approve to be used in this. Please keep me out of your banger deportation videos." He added that his, quote, thoughts and heart are a lot more nuanced. The 31-second DHS clip opens with Von saying, "Heard you got deported, dude. Bye." It then flashes agency claims of 2 million deportations in President Donald Trump's first 250 days, 1.6 million so-called self-deportations, and 400,000 removals before ending with "leave now." DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the numbers don't lie. Von, who has interviewed Trump on his podcast and draws a large right-leaning audience, rarely rebukes the administration.
Right. I'm sure it's never fun to be used as a prop for fascist propaganda, but after a couple weeks of self-reflection, Theo Von finally figured out the words to appropriately articulate his nuanced opinion on the matter.
My father immigrated here from Nicaragua, right? Like, one of my prized possessions is I have his immigration papers when he came here. And I have them in a frame, and him and his siblings when they came here. And so I have tons of thoughts about it, but this was just fucked up, right? It was fucked up. And it was everywhere. It was like on all platforms and stuff. So that had me really kind of paranoid. You know, that had me start to get kind of paranoid and, you know, like closing, like, you know, I had the curtains in my house kind of closed. I was just like, you know, you're paranoid. I woke up the next morning. Sorry, I need some water. I woke up the next morning to a text from a high government official saying, "Hey, if you need some extra security in your neighborhood or some extra police cars on patrol, let me know." And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Extra security? I don't have any, like, you know, I don't even know the code to my Ring camera. Like, I don't even know how to log in. So it's like, and like, what, you're just going to put police cars in my neighborhood? What are my neighbors going to think? Now they're fearful. Like, it just like, I don't know, man, that like really kind of shook me. It really kind of shook me. But you keep marching on.
Wow. Holy shit. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even watch that clip before playing it just now, but boy oh boy does it speak volumes that Theo Von's problem with being used as a political propaganda tool for the mass deportation of undocumented immigrants, the harassment of American citizens, ICE taking children out of their homes in zip ties naked in the street. No, his problem with the whole thing is that the White House blasted him out and put his life in danger. I was going to go easy on the guy. I was going to say, you know, I actually kind of like his comedy sometimes. He's a little bit fucked, but wow, fuck that guy. You want to talk about fucked up? That is fucked up, brother. Especially when you and your podcast bros have been credited with strengthening Donald Trump's connection to young men by hosting him during the 2024 election.
I've been in recovery most of the last 10 years.
How did you get addicted?
No, I would just do cocaine. That was really,
That's down and dirty, right?
Yeah, it started to make me feel like I was a mechanic or something.
So you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know, and you'll be your own street lamp. You're freaking.
And is that a good feeling?
No.
So it's not even good during what would be normally the good time. In other words, oh wow.
And look, no shade on the recovery aspect. He obviously copes with it with humor, which is what a lot of us do. But that is just a snippet of an over hour-long podcast with a convicted felon that became the president of the United States, who God and Ghislaine Maxwell only know if he might actually be a pedophile. We know he's a serial adulterer and sexual assailant, but that's cool, just shoot the shit. But he's not the only one. Trump's other macho butt buddies like Joe Rogan and kick streamer Adin Ross are also souring on him now too. all over the same stuff. We made a video over the summer about Joe Rogan grilling MAGA superstar Anna Paulina Luna over Trump's ICE sweeps.
I absolutely believe this is true, that I'm sure other countries fund similar things, but also it was in reaction to some of the ICE raids, right? I mean, it was a visceral reaction that a lot of people had, the idea of people just showing up and pulling people out of schools and pulling people out of Home Depot and pulling people that were just hardworking people that maybe snuck over here because they didn't have a legal way to get over here. But since they've been here, they've been good people and they're a part of communities. And that's what freaks people out.
And around the same time, Joe Rogan apparently took a break from all the supplements he tends to hawk, enough to grow a pair of balls big enough to slam Donald Trump's gaslighting on the Epstein scandal.
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah. So a guy like that decides, yeah, he's going to off himself. And again,
but here's the thing: it's like these guys that are all involved in this are they've been around for a long time, and they have this mentality that existed before the internet, where you could just kind of put stuff out there. Yeah. And you wouldn't have all these psycho sleuths out there that are going to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, especially guys who are tech wizards who can look at the metadata and he can figure this kind of stuff out.
Well, shit died a lot quicker, you're right. So something would happen, and look, we still have ADHD, right, collectively as a nation, right? I mean, things move on, and I think maybe that's what they're, some people are saying, look, they've called the recess on Capitol Hill because they figure by the time they come back in September, everybody will have moved on from this, right?
Yeah.
I think they're wrong. I don't think this feels like and just looks like that one of those handful of conspiracies, again, you go to JFK or whomever, that's just going to hang around.
This is a line in the sand.
Yeah.
This one's a line in the sand.
Yeah.
Because this is one where there's a lot of stuff about, when we thought Trump was going to come in and a lot of things are going to be resolved.
Yeah.
We're going to drain the swamp. We're going to figure everything out. And when you have this one hardcore line in the sand that everybody had been talking about forever, and then they're trying to gaslight you on that.
I guess Joe Rogan took enough shrooms to open his third eye, but unfortunately it was about 2 years too late. And last but certainly not least, you now have kick streamer Adin Ross. I'll explain who he is in a second. He's a piece of shit. He also platformed Trump over the summer, and recently he said, I really, really wish I never got into politics, and told his audience, I just don't think I'll ever care enough again for another politician. Ross, who has been repeatedly banned from streaming platforms over his use of hateful slurs, interviewed Trump last August at the president's Mar-a-Lago residence. And it was one of the most sycophantic interviews ever. Here is just a synopsis highlight of the bullshit that went down.
Check out this rap and let me know your honest thoughts.
I think it's incredible.
I'll get on the other side.
Should I show that to the audience?
Yeah, they can see it.
Oh, I didn't know this. Now I know it's worth it.
So wouldn't you know, when things aren't going the right way for the white men to have a grip on the ball sacks of so many young men in this country, then suddenly they find their voice. To in the most pansy, self-serving, bashful ways sit there and go, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe people do deserve healthcare and human rights and due process, and we shouldn't prop up pedophiles. Maybe. Screw all of those guys. Maybe their audiences will now start to pick up on it. Or maybe, like them, it won't come into their thick skulls until they actually get fucked by all of Trump's terrible policies and vengeful acts. He already tried to take down Kimmel. That man hates anyone who turns against him, and those guys will be no different. And no shade if you listen to their shows or anything like that. There's a reason they are as big as they are. But I think therein is the problem that needs more addressing than anything else. There are so many disillusioned youths out there, so many disillusioned men, particularly ones that look like me, that are so caught up in not caring about politics or wanting to be an alpha male. And I'm sure many of them are just upset that they don't have as good a lot in their life as their parents did, or that they can't hold down a job, or that there's no opportunities. And yet they've been swindled into thinking the biggest, both figuratively and physically, con man of the 21st century was gonna have their backs, and that the woke liberal communist pansies were the problem. But when they're finally done fucking around and they find out because ICE showed up at their door because they posted a JD Vance babyface meme, the only sympathy you'll get from me will look like this.
Heard you got deported, dude. Bye.
Thanks for watching, folks. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you in the next one.